Good morning, friends. Let's begin with a chant together. This is Thousands of Suns, one of Yogananda's chants to Divine Mother. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother divine? Let's pray together. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, dearest friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we bow humbly before you all. O Divine Mother, come to us now. Fill our consciousness with your presence. Expand our hearts with your love. Inspire our thoughts with your wisdom. Help us to realize by our own experience that you are everything, that you are I. Om, peace. Amen. Good morning, friends. Today we're going to be examining a prayer from Whispers from Eternity that is very practical. Perhaps one of the most practical prayers that I've yet delved into. And it is the demand for wisdom. And the reason why I think it's so practical is because it's very short. It's easily memorized. If you say it 5 or 10 times, you'll probably have it memorized. And in fact, we may do that today, and hopefully you'll carry it with you for the rest of your life. It's very short, it's easily recited, and its depths are yet unplumbed as far as I'm concerned. I think it has an enormous amount of potential to offer to us, because inherent within it is God realization, as is perhaps in all of his prayers, but this one, it's particularly obvious. And so this is the demand for wisdom, which is Whisper's prayer number 95. And I'll read it to us together, and actually, in fact, because it's so short, I'll just recite it a few times, and we'll take it a bit like we might an affirmation, that let's actually say it out loud together with a very strong and affirmative voice, really grabbing the attention of all of our conscious energy. And then we'll slowly interiorize it. And as we do, just try to feel this vibration becoming the essential reality of your consciousness, that this is who you are, that this is truth, this is reality, because it is. It's just our ignorance hides us from realizing it. So let's sit up straight, feeling in the heart, offering our heart's energy up to the spiritual eye in an act of prayer. And let's put words to that prayer. O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. Taking it inwards, making it a very personal call to the Divine Mother. O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. And let's take this inwardly, repeating it silently in the caverns of our own heart, allowing its vibration to echo and boom across the scape of our mind. O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. And let's do this one more time with deep concentration, penetrating through the veil that separates us from this true reality. O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. Om, peace. Amen. Can't you feel this prayer changing your consciousness? It's so beautiful, and it just immediately strikes to the core of all of our suffering, that we think we are separate from God, and so we suffer. We think we have lack, and so we suffer and we cry. But if we only knew that we were a part of everything, we would never cry. We would never suffer anymore. It's like the great saint from France, I believe, who said, if you only knew how much God loved you, you would die for joy. And I think that's really sort of wisdom. Wisdom is realizing the truth, realizing that God is the only reality and that you are a part of that reality. Wisdom is not the mental machinations of a sharp mind, but it is understanding truth for a personal experience, in your personal experience. And I often hear people misunderstand on our path Jnana Yoga and think that Jnana Yoga means being able to use the scalpel of your intellect to dissect fine, subtle points. And that's not really it at all. Using the intellect is useful perhaps because it can, like a surgeon's scalpel, cut away the cancer of misunderstanding, but it cannot give you true realization. Only the heart can give you that. Wisdom is of the heart. Wisdom is knowing truth without any question of a doubt. And that's why I opened with this chant, which Master actually said was specifically for the quality of wisdom. Who tells me thou art dark, O my Mother Divine? Thousands of suns and moons from thy body do shine. Because this chant is to Kali, who is often depicted as having dark skin, black skin, or dark, dark blue. And, you know, she's often depicted as being terrifying and fearsome and, you know, sometimes almost even in a bloodlust. But this chant is so beautiful to me because it's saying, they can't fool me, Ma. Many people may say that you are dark, that you are terrifying, that this world is full of darkness, but you can't fool me anymore because I've seen you. And that's wisdom. I have seen him, as St. Anthony of the Desert so succinctly and perfectly put it. That's the fruit of wisdom, is being able to say, I have seen the truth, and I know what it is. And as Christ put it in the Bible, the truth will set you free. And there's no more suffering then. In the story of St. Anthony of the Desert, St. Anthony spent something ridiculous like 80 years doing intense tapasya, essentially, in silence, in seclusion, overcoming the last vestiges of limitation in his own soul. And then when he had become very, very saintly and purified, there was a schism happening in the church. I'm sure you've all heard this story. And the schism was threatening to split the church. That there was one side of the schism declaring that Jesus was just a man and that he was not the Son of God. And there was another side that was saying, no, he is the Son of God. He is the manifestation of the divine in this world. And the schism was very dangerous. And finally someone went and found St. Anthony and brought him to the church. And apparently in the middle of the Mass, when they came to the point where they say Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the whole congregation burst into argument. He is the Son of God. No, he's the Son of Man. And it was just a shame to see God's children reduced to such a squabbling mess. And St. Anthony, seeing this, and he was dressed as a poor beggar in rags after being in seclusion for so many decades. And I sort of imagine him as being, you know, perhaps a little unkempt with like a fierce beard and deep eyes. And the story goes that all St. Anthony did was stand, and the entire room fell silent because they could feel that this was a man of intuitive power, of realization. And the whole church fell quiet, and he ended the schism with a few simple words. I have seen him. That was it. Who could possibly argue with that? Because his words resonated with divine power, because they resonated off the soundboard of his own experience. I have seen him. There is the living Christ. He is the Son of God. He has come to me. He has rescued me. He has redeemed me. I am witness to his power. I have seen him. And that's the fruit of wisdom, is to know without any shadow of a doubt that God is all that there is. Now, I don't know that yet from my own experience, but I'm inching my way towards that. And I've used this prayer. Actually, this is the longest I've ever used one of these whispers from eternity. I originally took one prayer for about a month, but then I often found that a month felt like I was only just scratching the surface, so I'd take it for 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months. But this prayer, this demand for wisdom, I've been saying this every day for 9 months or so now, and I just feel like I'm barely beginning to sip at the waters that it hints at. And I actually took this prayer as japa for a number of weeks, almost a month or two. And I would say this prayer almost endlessly for hours a day. And I was amazed to discover that aligning your consciousness to this prayer, O Spirit, Thou art I am Thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. It really erases so many of your troubles. At the time when I took up this prayer, my life was really uncertain. I had left my service and my life in Los Angeles, where I'd been my entire adult life, and I found myself a bit adrift on the sea of life's karma. And for some time I didn't even know where I was going to live. I was just sort of traveling around the West Coast like a wandering sadhu of the 21st century, which was wonderful in some regards and was completely terrifying in other regards, I'll admit. But this prayer really helped me find steadfast faith and surrender and acceptance in God, because I am wisdom. If Thou art wisdom, then I am wisdom. And if Thou art bliss, then I am bliss. And if I have wisdom, complete wisdom and bliss, what have I to want? What have I to fear? There's nothing more I could possibly desire than complete and perfect wisdom and to be engrossed in bliss. And wisdom and bliss are really just two sides of the same coin. In fact, they're just two sides of the eight-sided diamond of God's consciousness, which Master often described using the 8 universal aspects of God. But I think it's worth meditating on. Swami Kriyananda hinted at this, and I'm forgetting the exact words he used, but he said, love and wisdom are the same. Bliss and wisdom are the same. When you experience wisdom very deeply, you experience love. When you experience true divine love deeply, it purifies your heart until, therefore, you experience wisdom. And Lahiri Mahashaya said something I thought was deeply inspiring, that he said the practice of Kriya Yoga is the highest practice of all 3 of the paths of yoga, of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Because in Kriya Yoga, it's the highest expression of Karma Yoga because we are doing the divine service. We are purifying ourselves in the deepest sense, and we are offering the very essence of who we are to the divine, which is my truncated version of Karma Yoga. And then he also said it's the highest form of Bhakti Yoga because by firmly controlling our energy, by reasserting our control over our energy rather, and by purifying the heart and offering all of our prana of the heart to God, that's the ultimate act of devotion. That's love. That's complete all-surrendering love. And then he said, when we practice Kriya and we raise the energy and we unite all of our energy of our body into the spine and we raise it up to the brain, that's the highest practice of Jnana Yoga. Because it's when we lift that energy up to the brain, when we allow God's light to enter the brain, that we experience true wisdom. And so, like many other times, all I'm going to say to conclude that is practice Kriya Yoga. I think we have no idea how much good it's really doing. If you're anything like me, perhaps there are many days, embarrassingly large amount of days, when your Kriya practice is not as deep as perhaps you'd like or perhaps you could imagine, but don't lose faith. It's doing a tremendous work of reshaping your spine, of reshaping your heart, your mind, your soul, everything, into this experience of God and you being one. Now, something I'd like to just touch in on briefly is this prayer is very personal. O Spirit. It's beautiful because it works perfectly between the impersonal and the personal. He doesn't use the name of God as an aspect of a familial relationship like father, mother, friend, or beloved. He says Spirit, which is like formless, the essence of all creation, the heart of all, but formless. And so we're playing with that impersonal, vast, undefinable part of God, O Spirit. But then he immediately brings it into the personal, Thou art I. Because remember, God is infinite, God is infinity, God is everything, but He is also infinitesimal, He is you. He is your heartbeat, He is your thoughts, He is the very vibration of the atoms in your body. He's everything. O Spirit, thou art I. He is even the consciousness with which you call I. O Spirit, thou art I. I am thou. What an incredible revelation, just right there. Thou art I, and therefore I am thou. Because there is nothing that isn't you. There's no separation. O Spirit, thou art I. I am thou. I mean, that's enough of a prayer right there. If we could realize that, we'd go into spontaneous ecstasy. Because that is coaxing the little shell of the ego into realizing its unity with the universe. In fact, with beyond the universe, with the creator of the universe, with Spirit itself. O Spirit, thou art I. I am thou. Thou art wisdom. Because God created everything. God knows everything about everything. I haven't actually found the passage myself, but my dear friend and mentor Drupada told me a quote from, I think, Man's Eternal Quest, which says, "It could take you lifetimes to discover everything about my universe. But if you get in touch with me, I'll tell you what you need to know." And I think it's fair to say, Yogananda said humorously, that you could spend your entire life as a scientist trying to discover the secrets of seawater mollusks. And still at the end of your life, I don't know if it was mollusks in particular, it was some totally benign sea-born creature. And he said, and at the end of your life, you still wouldn't know everything about that creature. But if you get in tune with God, God can introduce you to the secrets of the whole universe instantly. And so that's what this prayer is really going for. Is saying, God, I don't want to spend my mind and my energy, my attention, chasing petty details of this ever-changing material world. I want to know you, because I want to know everything. And if you're anything like me, there is an insatiable hunger in the heart for a deeper and greater expanded experience of life. And if we let that hunger go out of ourselves into the world, we'll become sense addicts. We'll become, as Master put it, I believe, like sense washout or sex washouts. But we could replace sex with sense, just any sensory pleasure, sense washouts. But if we seek our inner and deeper fulfillment by experiencing a deeper experience of the Spirit within us, that's rather exciting. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. But then God is not just a cool, dispassionate understanding of all the workings of the universe. He's bliss itself. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. What a beautiful prayer. What a beautiful demand to ask to not only understand all things in their proper light, that we may act perfectly in this world and beyond, but also to experience the endless waves of God's bliss rolling through our soul. That's what this prayer is really asking for. Isn't that beautiful? It's so short. O Spirit, thou art I am thou. Thou art wisdom, I am wisdom. Thou art bliss, I am bliss. I would encourage you to try practicing this prayer. Say this prayer throughout your day, before you embark on your work, before you come back, before you take your meal, or before you go to bed, before you meditate. And just try and tune into this reality. I am bliss. That bliss is already in me. I'm just preoccupied. My mind has been deceived into infatuation with the material world. I had a very interesting experience after doing this prayer for a great number of months. I mean, not great, it's not like it's some Herculean event, it's just been 9. But I had, I think, perhaps what was a superconscious dream state, where I felt myself no longer dreaming, but in an expanded state of inner awareness. And I felt myself coming out of sleep. And I became aware of my body, but I was also aware of a greater expansion of myself. And I could feel the sea of my consciousness was far bigger than my ego. And in that state of awareness, the thought that came to me, and it's not like it came through my mind or my head because I didn't have a head for it to come through. It just sort of rolled through the sphere of my heart. And that thought was, what is this I? Because I realized in that moment of expanded awareness, I was like watching this little I called Keshava rest in his bed. And I could feel that identification with that I was so cumbersome, was so contractive, was so boring. And that really who I was this great expanded awareness. And that I never wanted to have to go back to that little I, but at the same time I could feel my consciousness coming back to it. It was just very, very interesting. It was like my superconscious self was giving me a dose of rhetoric. What is this I? And a very, very persuading question to think about. But what is this I? What gives us even the power to say I? It's God, isn't it? Bharat, Nayaswami Bharat said something really beautiful in a Sunday service that I was graced to hear a few years ago now. And I'm paraphrasing here, but I think the truth will still shine. And he said that we should practice the presence of God in everything. And that's no surprise to those of us who have been following Yogananda's teachings for some time. But, you know, he said to see God in others, to see God in everything. He has developed the incredible system of sharing nature with children where really it guides you to a mystical experience of perceiving God in all of creation, which is incredibly beautiful, and I would highly recommend you experience it for yourself if you haven't. But he went on in his lecture to say we need to feel that the only two players in the play of our life is God and us. That every time we talk to anyone, that's God. We're talking to God, and God is speaking to us. Whenever someone does something to us, that's coming from God, because that is God. And he said we need to live in this way until that becomes the normal, until we truly see this as being a dance between us and God. That's the I and thou relationship. That we see thou, we see God, we see thee in everything. And we feel that it's just this beautiful divine romance, this dance between the beloved and I. But then he said the final step, or the next step, is to surrender even your sense of self into that awareness of God. And to just accept that even that too is not you. And then he said you'll begin to feel that it's just God playing with God. And it's just Divine Mother playing with Divine Mother. And you are bearing witness to this joyful, incredible play. I'm not quite sure what exactly that looks like, but I have had glimpses of it, perhaps. Glimpses where I can feel Master's vibration flowing through my heart, or Divine Mother coming into my consciousness. And I'm sure we've all had moments when we felt that we were being an instrument of something higher, especially when working with other people. Perhaps you've had a moment where you truly were acting as a channel of divine compassion, or a channel for divine love, or a channel for divine wisdom. That's the first step, I think, into learning to expand that little experience into an ever-present reality of realizing that God is using you as an instrument. And then eventually you can even let go of the idea of instrument, and then you just feel God. And that's like what Swami Kriyananda would say at the end of his life, that he said that I can no longer tell where Swami Kriyananda ends and where Yogananda begins. Because to him there was no longer the dance between I and thou, it was just thou, 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 everywhere. So friends, I encourage you to take this most practical of prayers, because of its brevity, because of its importance, because of its power, into your daily life. And let's learn to live in God's wisdom. Let's learn to live in God's bliss. God bless you.